and welcome back, or welcome to my channel. I hope that you are doing well, as today I have another true crime ASMR series video for you to enjoy. Today we are going to be diving in to the Cecil Hotel lore. The Cecil Hotel is an affordable housing complex in downtown Los Angeles. It opened on December 20th, 1924 as a luxury hotel. It, however, declined during the Great Depression and subsequent decades. In 2011, the hotel was renamed the Stay on Main. The 14-floor hotel has 700 guest rooms and a checkered history, with many suicides and accidental or unnatural deaths occurring there. Renovations started in 2017 were halted by the COVID-19 pandemic, resulting in the hotel's temporary closure. On December 13th, 2021, the hotel was reinaugurated as an affordable housing complex. A 2023 Los Angeles Times article described and photographed the rundown conditions inside the Hotel Cecil, which included black mold and vermin infestations, water leakages, graffiti, vandalism, and unsanitary communal amenities. Many of its low-income residents, including former Skid Row homeless, require ongoing medical, mental health, and substance abuse treatment. In 2024, the owners of the Hotel Cecil, Simon Barron Properties, listed the hotel for sale. Now, the Cecil Hotel is not just known for its affordable housing and declining amenities, but the Cecil Hotel seems to continue having this reputation for violence, suicide, and even murder. So, today we will be going over each death and suicide that has occurred at the notorious Cecil Hotel. And as always, this video will be added to my True Crime ASMR series playlist. And this is where you can find past and future videos in this series. So, let's get into it. So, since the Cecil Hotel opened its doors in 1924, it has been filled with crime, murder, and even death. It was dubbed Hotel Death, and people over the years have thought there were dark forces and spirits there which were behind everything that was happening. The hotel is located in Skid Row, a neighborhood in downtown Los Angeles. The complex at 640 South Main Street was built by three hoteliers, William Banks Hanner, Charles L. Dix, and Robert H. Shops. And it was supposed to be a destination for business travelers and tourists. But since then, hundreds have died and murderers have checked in to stay. A new Netflix series, Crime Scene, The Vanishing at the Cecil Hotel, focuses specifically on the 2013 death of a Canadian student named Elisa Lam, but also touches upon some of the other cases that occurred here. Hotel manager Amy Price, as interviewed in this series, says there were around 80 deaths there just during the 10 years she served. Over the years, before and during her employment, people jumped from hotel windows, and the hotel was home to serial killer Richard Ramirez, or as he is formally known, the Night Stalker. The first registered death at the hotel was 52-year-old Percy Ormond Cook in 1927. In January that year, he took his own life after falling out with his wife and child. 4 years later, there was another death. A man called James Willies checked in, and a week later was found dead in his room and identified as actually being 46-year-old W.K. Norton. In September of 1932, a member of the cleaning staff found 25-year-old Benjamin Doddick after he had taken his own life in his room. In July of 1934, Army Medical Corps Sergeant Louis D. Borden ended his life at the Cecil. It is thought he was struggling with bad health and wanted to die. He was aged 53, and he was found dead in his room at the Cecil. He had slashed his throat with a razor, and he had left several notes, one of which cited poor health as the reason for his suicide. In 1937, Grace E. McGraw fell from the hotel's 9th-story window. Though she initially survived, after her fall was broken by telephone wires. She, however, died in the hospital. Police were unable to determine whether McGraw's death was the result of an accident or suicide. In 1938, Roy Thompson, who had been a Cecil resident for a number of weeks, jumped from the top floor, and his body was discovered atop a skylight of a next-door building by a hotel employee. In May 1939, 39-year-old Navy officer Irwin C. Niblett died in his room. Niblett had taken poison and was found unconscious on the floor of his hotel room by a maid. He died shortly after police arrived. In January of 1940, teacher Dorothy Seeger was staying at the Cecil Hotel when she died in her room. Seeger, who registered under the pseudonym Evelyn Brent, had ingested poison on January 10th, 1940. Beforehand, Seeger sent her relatives a note indicating she was going to kill herself. Dorothy died at General Hospital on January 12th, 1940. In September 1944, Dorothy Purcell, who was 19 years old at the time, was sharing a room with her boyfriend at the Cecil. Unaware that she was pregnant, she went into labor. She later testified that she did not want to awaken her boyfriend, so she went to the bathroom where she gave birth. Thinking the baby was dead, she threw him out of the window, and he landed on the roof of an adjacent building. Purcell was charged with murder. 3 psychiatrists testified that she was mentally confused at the time of the incident. In January 1945, she was found not guilty by reason of insanity. Could you imagine? Like, I don't want to wake my boyfriend up, so let me just go give birth in the bathroom. That was one that I was like, that one like shook me to the core, because like, you're gonna tell me your boyfriend didn't hear you having birth? Anyway, in November of 1947, Robert Smith, who was 35 years old, died after jumping from one of the Cecil's 7th floor windows. In October of 1954 or 55, 55-year-old Heenan Gurney jumped from the window of her 7th floor room. And you're going to see this recurring thing, at least I did. A lot of these deaths happen when people are on the 7th floor. It happens on all floors, I'm pretty sure, but the 7th floor is a recurring floor that you'll see. But Heenan Gurney jumped from the window of her 7th floor room and landed on top of Cecil's marquee. 1 week prior, she had registered at the hotel under the name Margaret Brown. In February 1962, 50-year-old Julia Frances Moore jumped from the window of her 8th floor room and landed in a second-story interior light well. She did not leave a suicide note. In October 1962, 27-year-old Pauline Auden had an argument with her estranged husband, who had left the room prior to her suicide by defenestration. Auden landed on a pedestrian, and defenestration is jumping out of a building. Auden had landed on a pedestrian, 65-year-old George Giannini, and both of them died instantly. Police had initially thought Auden and Giannini committed double suicide. It was later determined that Giannini had his hands in his pockets at the time of the death and was still wearing shoes, which would not have been possible had he jumped. In June 1964, a hotel worker discovered 65-year-old Goldie Osgood dead in her room. She had been raped, stabbed, and beaten, and her room was ransacked. Osgood was well known around the area and had earned her nickname because she fed birds in the nearby Pershing Square. Near her body was the LA Dodgers cap she always wore and a paper sack full of birdseed. Hours after her murder, Jacquez Ellinger, who was 29 at the time, was seen walking through Pershing Square in blood-stained clothing. He was arrested and charged with Osgood's murder, but was later cleared of the crime. Her murder remains unsolved. In December of 1975, 23-year-old, using the alias Allison Lowell, jumped from her 12th floor window onto the Cecil's second floor roof. She had registered at the hotel on December 16th under Allison Lowell and was staying in room 327. She remains unidentified. In September of 1992, the body of a 20 to 30-year-old African American man was found in the alley behind the Cecil. Police said he had either fallen, jumped, or had been pushed from the hotel's 15th floor. The 20 to 30-year-old male has never been identified. On February 19th, 2012, the naked body of a Canadian student was found inside one of the water supply tanks on the hotel roof. It was later found that it was the Canadian student Elisa Lam in that water supply tank. She had gone missing almost 3 weeks earlier, on January 31st, 2013. Her decomposing body was discovered by a maintenance worker in one of the rooftop water tanks after guests had complained about low water pressure and the water tasting funny. Video surveillance footage taken from inside an elevator depicted her, Elisa Lam's, erratic behavior, which caused widespread speculation about what the true cause of her death was. She was reported to have had bipolar disorder, for which she was prescribed various medications, which could have contributed to her death, as well as her strange behavior in the elevator. The Los Angeles County Coroner's Office subsequently ruled the death an accident, with bipolar disorder being a significant contributing factor. Now, we will go into deeper detail on this case in part 2. Obviously, there are many conspiracies, theories, and speculation on what happened in this case. I don't want you thinking I'm just touching it and going next. I mainly wanted this video to just touch on the history of the Cecil Hotel and really just give you an idea of what all is going on here, okay? Because it's very important to know all these underlying facts about this hotel, okay? So we will touch more on this in the next video, okay? So, on June 13th, 2015, the body of a 28-year-old man was found outside the hotel. A spokesman for the Los Angeles County Coroner said that the death was believed to be suicide by defenestration, which is falling out of a window. Besides direct deaths and violence, at least 2 serial killers, Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker, and Jack Unterweger, have stayed at the hotel, and also murder victim Elizabeth Short, who is better known as the Black Dahlia. One of the worst serial killers in U.S. history, Richard Ramirez stayed at the Cecil during his spree. It's described in the Netflix documentary that he would return from killing people in the middle of the night to the back alley of the hotel. He would be covered in blood and remove his clothing and walk in his blood-stained underwear up to his room repeatedly, and no one said anything. Richard was 24 when he terrorized the streets of LA and San Francisco for just over a year before he was hunted down by police. He would be convicted in 1989, charged with 13 murders, 5 attempted murders, 11 sexual assaults, and 14 burglaries. And if you would like more backstory on Richard Ramirez, I highly suggest popping over to my most recent video, which is about Richard Ramirez and his spree in LA. in San Francisco. So, in 1991, a journalist from Austria called Jack Unterweger checked in at the Cecil. He was writing a story about red light districts in LA. Skid Row, where the hotel is located, is known for being a hot spot for sex workers. Unterweger was investigating this in the area and even went on drive-alongs with police. He would regularly engage with police and sex workers, and even had sex workers come and visit him in his room at the Cecil. He was becoming a well-known face in the area. Some would even say a celebrity. Unknown to everyone, Unterweger is a convicted killer and rapist in Austria. In 1974, he was sentenced over the sexual assault and murder of a young woman. He was released in the 1990s, and almost instantly in the area he was living, women began going missing and being found dead. He was the main suspect in these crimes, so he fled to America. The murders stopped in Austria and picked up in LA. In 1992, police caught Unterweger in Miami after tracing his credit card. He was eventually extradited to Austria, and despite maintaining his innocence, he was found guilty of 9 murders. Just hours after his sentence, he took his own life in his cell, and he was 43 years old. In February 2021, Netflix had released a show, The Vanishing at the Cecil Hotel, that, as I said before, goes into great detail about Elisa Lam's disappearance. Not only that, but it gets more info from people who worked at the Cecil Hotel. Amy Price was the manager of the Cecil for 10 years, between 2007 and 2017. She's interviewed in the Netflix series and says her job was to fix up the troubled hotel. I believe in the 10 years I was working there, there were about 80 deaths, she adds. When I've read that, I don't even have, I've looked up all the murders I've told you and suicides I've told you. These are all that are documented. I'm not sure where she's getting 80 between 10 years. But anyway, she says that she had witnessed actually 80 deaths in those 10 years that she was hired there. During her time there was the death of Elisa Lam, the 21-year-old Canadian student who had been a guest at the hotel and went missing on February 1st, 2013. Another news story during Amy's time as manager involved a body which was found outside the hotel in 2015. And the cause of death remains undetermined. And also the identity of that man as well. Since then, there has been no recorded deaths at the Cecil, but that's only because it's closed for renovation work. Okay, so that is today's video on the Cecil Hotel Part 1. I will be uploading a part 2 to this series where we dive into the theories and conspiracies around the Cecil Hotel. I'm not one to believe that there are ghosts or spirits or demonic things happening, but I think we all can confirm that this place is a breeding ground, if not a just, what is that word? It seems to pull like everybody to it. It's just this it's like a magnet for negative energy and negative people, for being honest here. We have 2 serial killers, one Richard Ramirez. God's only knows. He probably killed people in that hotel. I mean, the man had a serious history of going into women's rooms and stuff like that, and he had worked at other hotels. He tried to molest children. Like, God knows what happened at this hotel while he was there, besides him just walking in with bloodstained clothes. But we'll go more into the conspiracies with the hotel in the next video. Just a lot going on here, and a lot of questions that remain unanswered as far as I am concerned. This might have been a place where people felt comfortable to commit suicide at. I mean, it seems pretty easy there to, at least back in the day, to list a room under a fake alias. I feel like that's why now hotels are so, like, they need a credit card for you to even be in a hotel. I don't even think there is hotels that take just cash. Which is obviously to cover their behinds, and to, in case anything happens, so that these people are identified and they're able to give them back to their families. I don't have a good answer for this one, but I do hope that these people found peace in the end and afterlife. So, come back and see me for part 2 on the Cecil Hotel. And as always, thank you so much for hanging out with me today, and I will see you next time.